everybody. First of all, I want to apologize to the roach. Because, you know, we put our talk in the middle of his path to find his food. And I want to show him a little empathy. And in fact, in a way, what we're going to be talking about today is about empathy as it applies to design and living in this world. So today I'm going to talk about the government, I'm going to talk about design, I'm going to talk about activism, and I'm going to talk about communications. And yes, we can talk about all those things at one time. So let's get the slides going. First of all, I was asked to just tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm going to first talk about me, and then I'm going to talk about my friends in the design community. I design communications for public-facing organizations, for hospitals and for government agencies. And I have gotten to that point through a long path that stretched about 30 years, and the whole time I was searching for models for being a design activist. So I thought I would share my search with you, show you some of the things I discovered, things that worked and didn't work, and see what you think about it. So first of all, in the 1960s, and I am old enough to have been around even before the 60s, I grew up in a family that was focused on the civil rights movement, and in fact, the March on Washington went right in front of my house. And I learned from my parents that you should always speak up about things that need changing. If something's happening in your environment, in your neighborhood, in your government, you have the right to speak up. And I was young at that time, but later on, I learned maybe about in the 70s that, oh wow, graphic design could have an impact on my community. This green poster up here that you see that says Hike was the first piece of graphic design I ever did. I was about, I don't know, about 14, 15. And my friends and I decided to put on a walk-a-thon to raise, this was before walk-a-thons were cool, to raise money for hunger. And so what we did is we made a poster, and we put the poster up, and the poster got attention, and then we got an article in the newspaper, which you see there, and that's us up there in the corner. And then the article led to more people coming to the walk and giving us money, and a light bulb went off in my head. There's a relationship between graphic design and activism and getting things done in the community. So later on, after I got educated and became a formal graphic designer, my very first jobs were working at Citibank designing the first ATM ever, which is the Citibank touchscreen ATM. And I learned a tremendous amount doing that. I learned that if you involve people in the design of tools and communications, they turn out better. I learned all about usability. Everything I know about usability I learned at Citibank in the 1980s. So I took that in, hung on to it, and then kept on going. And in the 90s, began to teach in the graduate graphic design program at Yale University. And during that time, the graduate graphic design students were doing some interesting things. They were experimenting with collective design activism. And what they did is this group, there was a group, and they called themselves Yale Class Action. They would take on a topic of public interest, and they would go out like guerrillas and use design to promote that idea in places that they were not allowed to go. So they would take over storefronts that were abandoned and cover it with posters. In this particular case, they found the owner of a billboard, and the billboard was empty, and they convinced him to allow them to put up this message about battered women for a short month period, and then they took it down. And I was watching them. I wasn't working with them, but I watched them. I thought, this is something that might be useful later on in my career. So at that time, I said, the same students were in a class for an information design class. And I said, wow, maybe we can do some civic action. So for that class, I brought in the 1990 census form and said, hey guys, what do you think? Do you think we can do a better job of designing this? And as you can see from this, it looks like an SAT. It looked like an SAT test. Really difficult. And the kids said, yes, we think we can do it. So they did. Every student redesigned it, and these are maybe 4 out of the 15 designs that they came up with, using typography and layout and paper folding to make the whole thing much more accessible, easier to read, easier to understand. and they were in black and white. And so I said, oh, okay, let's see what happens if we take it to Washington. So we hopped on a train, we went to Washington, we brought those down, and they hired us. They hired the students, they hired me, they hired a firm to sit down and figure out how to translate, turn that SAT test into something that the general public would respond to, and they went to every single household in America. So we did many, many, many prototypes, many, many variations on a theme. This is one of the many. And then tested them out on real people. We brought in focus groups. We pulled people off the street. We ran this form through, I would say, about 150 people, trying to figure out what's the best way to organize the data so it's understandable. They even hired us to brand it, which we did. And altogether, the form was much simpler, much easier to read. It was branded. The packages were opened more often. We learned from the public to put in statements that explain why the census was the way it was. And this is a little bright. It wasn't quite that bright, trust me. It was more like a beige, but the projector's making it bright yellow, but I think you get the idea. And what happened was, a very interesting thing happened. The rate of response to the census had been going down steadily by 10% every year from the 1970s. After this effort and a marketing campaign, it started going back up. So we felt vindicated. And we thought, wow, this is where I in particular and my team learned that participatory design really matters. Involving the public in the design process made a difference, and designers made a difference. So I carried that with me along to the year 2000. You know what happened with the election then. And the Professional Association of AIGA, the Design for Democracy group, put out a call for designers all across the country to come together and put together ideas for how the election could have been engineered or redesigned in a better way. And this is the poster we designed for that. And out of that came a commission from the federal government to redesign and create guidelines for voting all across the country. This is a little piece of the guidelines. And then this is one of the sample ballot designs showing how you use typography, bold type, you know, the sort of basics of graphic design to make ballot design much simpler and easier to understand. And those guidelines were published, and the states were not mandated to use them. They could elect to use them, and New York State has not elected to use these guidelines yet, as you can see. But we were proud to be involved with it. And so lastly, now we're up to the present. I just took you across 30 years. Now we're in the present, and now I'm in a group called the Public Design Lab. And this is a combination of learning from class action where you bring your friends together and you just get stuff done. So the Public Design Lab is a group of really design friends. It's me, David Gibson, Ann Harakawa, Chelsea Mould, and Carla Hall. They might even be here. Are you here? Somebody here? No, they're not here. By then I can say whatever I want to say. We take on projects. We find projects, we see things that the government is doing, and we comment on them and we redesign them. This is our current project right now. This is the slip that you get on your door when the postman came and you weren't home, which is like all the time, right? And well, if you live in an apartment building, you may not have this problem. But if you live in a house, it's awful. So anyway, you get this pink slip, and you have to fill it out to get your package. And many a time I've failed because I didn't understand the form. So we at the Public Design Lab decided to see if we could just redesign it on our own, and we did. So this is the way it is now on the left, and on the right is our proposal. Why can't it be friendly? Why can't you say, sorry, we missed you? It's not your fault, it's our fault. You know, clearly show where to fill it in. Put the Postal Service logo on it. So we took this, we got it in front of the postmaster, and he said, wow, this is a simple thing that we can do to create goodwill for everybody in America. They put out an RFP with a huge usability scope of work in it. And we're waiting to see what's going to happen. Of course, they went bankrupt just a few months ago, so we'll see if we end up doing it.